May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Nicodemus, who features so centrally, of course, in that gospel passage that we have just heard from the fourth gospel, is one of the most intriguing of characters to appear in the fourth gospel, and indeed he appears. It's almost as if the gospel is punctuated by him, because he appears at the beginning, in the middle, and again at the end. It is said that he is a Pharisee, and unfortunately, many Christians interpret that as meaning, and indeed if you look in the dictionary, the definition says, those who are of a hypocritical nature, who feel that they are superior. That is not the case, of course. The Pharisees were not. If anyone was going to feel superior, it would have been the Sadducees, who were aristocratic. The Pharisees were the precursors to the rabbis, if you like. They were those who were concerned most with the keeping of the regulations of the Jewish faith. And they were one among myriad groups at the time. There were the Sadducees, who, as I say, were aristocratic and who denied the existence of angels or the immortality of the soul or life after death. There were the Essenes, who, some of them, were more like terrorists engaged in guerrilla warfare. And of course, there were the Zealots. Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and he comes to Christ by night. That is no mere accident that St. John records that, no mere detail, a throwaway line. It is of crucial importance. On this second Sunday in Lent, God calls us in the intimacy of darkness. Fair weather friends and sunshine days are a thing apart from companions and companionship forged in tribulation, and lovers who share the cold loneliness of night. On this second Sunday in Lent, we settle into darkness. And of course, it's almost at the very root of our nature that when we are overtaken by darkness, we become quieter. As in the womb, the infant hears but does not speak. And so we settle in darkness to hear the voice of God speaking to us. Nicodemus tries to flatter. Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher, for no one can do these works that you do except they come from God. He begins by flattering, but Christ questions him, and eventually Christ says to him, more or less, I can teach you nothing if you are so spiritually unaware, if you are not still and quiet enough to hear the voice of God. You will remain spiritually blind and spiritually dead and spiritually deaf. In the months since my chemotherapy, I have become aware that my hearing is not as good as it used to be. And I made something of a breakthrough with one of my doctors during this past week. I've had all the tests, and they've come back. There's no diminishing of my hearing, which is very peculiar. They've been measuring volume, of course, and tone and pitch. But what I've realized is that I used to hear the resonance of buildings, the echoes of architecture, the kind of noises that one hears in a building that is larger than just a small carpeted living room. And that has gone. I used to be aware whenever I entered a building of how large it was. It didn't matter whether the lights were on, whether I could see or not, but I could hear. And now I can't, which is a good metaphor for settling, for being still and attentive and waiting upon God to hear his voice calling. In the name of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.